Okay, so I think we'll make a start then. So welcome to everybody who's logged on today to join us for this information session. We hope it will be a really useful session for you. Expect you're waiting anxiously at the moment for your exam results, whether it's A-levels or GCSEs, because they're out this week. We will be recording session and it will be available later. So you've missed a little bit or you'd like to request a recording, please let us know afterwards. You'll see at the bottom of your screen there's a Q&A button. Please feel free to post questions during the session. Some of them we'll address as we go and others we will pick up at the end, but there'll be plenty of time, we hope, to answer any questions that you may have. Okay, so my name is Mary Murayama. I'm from Education Advisors. We're consultants who specialise in helping and advising families who are looking for private school and college places. I'm delighted today to welcome Alistair Brownlow, who's the principal of Rochester Independent College. Hello, Alistair, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Good morning, Mary. Hi. It's getting results is such a rite of passage for anyone in any year, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. So Rochester Independent College is a private secondary school for students aged 11 to 18 with almost 350 students. Rochester has a particularly successful sixth form with over 220 students, and it's earned a reputation over the years for specialising particularly in retake and short courses to cater for students from a wide range of educational backgrounds and to help them reach their potential, and have seen huge success in this area. Alistair has been principal for 20 years and has a wealth of experience in helping young people to achieve their goals. They've really individualised and fantastic A-level teaching. I'm really delighted to have Alistair here to share his experience and knowledge with us today.
Oh, thank you, Mary. That's great. I mean, I don't know if you remember getting your A-level results. We had brown envelopes rather than student portals and UCAS track and results day playlists on Spotify, I noticed this morning. Things were more lo-fi.
Yeah, I do. I think I was on holiday. I'd already started my backpacking adventure and I had to make a phone call home. So it was really quite nerve-wracking. I had to find a telephone box to do that.
Well, I'm so grateful for you guys, Education Advisors, for the invitation to speak and to share some thoughts on how to respond to whatever your results are with a wider audience. Just by way of introduction, if I may, there's been such a lot of talk this year about grade inflation. I've had students asking me whether their A-levels will be taken seriously this year because they've been awarded by teacher-assessed grades. The short and really important answer is absolutely yes. They will be. They've been awarded through a very rigorous process by the teachers who know their students best. All of the universities are quite clear the A-level results are being taken seriously. It's been an extraordinarily difficult 2 years for everyone in schools, and students and their teachers have been genuinely impressive in how they've navigated the impact of the pandemic. And I really wanted to start by saying a big congratulations to the class of 2021 who'll be getting their results tomorrow. They've persevered through another year of disrupted education, online learning, schools closed, remember, again from January to March, and then a great deal of uncertainty about how their A-levels and GCSEs were going to be assessed. There might not be A-levels in resilience, grit and flexibility, but I think this whole generation of students deserves a gold medal for coping with the year and staying focused on their education. And they certainly deserve the results day celebrations of tomorrow, rather than having their achievements obscured by sort of national hand-wringing about grade inflation.
No, absolutely, it's so important, and I think it's a really, it's a vital message for young people getting their results this week. It's been an extraordinarily difficult year for students and for teachers and schools. I think, really very difficult. But I can only reiterate what Alistair said about, these are very, very valid grades that you're going to be awarded, and universities are taking them 100% seriously, and you must feel that you have earned them, and I say, they are very important grades for you and shouldn't be undermined in any way. There are always going to be students every results day who don't achieve the result that they had hoped for or expected, or that they may need for the next stage of their education. And I think this year's no exception to that. However the grades are awarded, that is going to be the case. What we want to do today really is to reassure you that whatever results you get, whether they're better than you expected or perhaps you haven't achieved what you'd hoped for, there are always options for you. Our job as consultants is to help students navigate through those options, to make you aware of what you can do. And we're particularly today going to look at the role of the independent sixth form colleges. Rochester is obviously a school that caters for younger students as well, but it also has a place within that independent sixth form college genre of colleges, if you like. It offers very flexible programs for students who might be looking for solutions for the next stage. So Alistair is going to talk a little bit about the sixth form colleges as well a bit later on. So one thing that's really important this week is to be prepared for your results. So be aware, what do you need to get? Are you waiting for ALevel results? Are you holding university offer perhaps? Be aware of the grades that you need and be ready to act if perhaps you don't get the grades that you expected. So today, we want to make you aware of what those options might be. So just have a little think in advance. What scenarios might you face and what can you do? Above all, you don't need to panic because there is always a solution. GCSEs coming out obviously on the 12th of August, Thursday this week. Some sixth form offers will have been made to you on the basis that you achieve certain grades in your GCSEs. You may do better than you expected. You might think, oh, actually, perhaps I'll have a think about my A-level choices. It's never too late to rethink. You have a lot of choices open to you at this stage of your education and your life. So really look at your results and think, okay, what's the next best step for me? Well, also look here, what can the independent sixth form colleges offer you in terms of sixth form courses? Was there anything you'd like to add there, Alistair?
Yeah, absolutely. Don't panic, and is a really important thing to underline. The weekend before exam results is always, even in the normal year, full of media stories relating to exams and university places. And those of you reading the newspapers at the weekend would have seen that things are being reported in more alarmist terms than ever. The Times yesterday was predicting a battle for places at the most selective universities, but really there is some pressure on some places at some of the more competitive universities, but most universities are in clearing. Most universities still have courses. So the idea at the moment of that there's suddenly all the places have been taken is simply not true. We need to do a little bit of myth busting, I think, this morning and show people that there are still options available, whether that's looking at clearing if you've narrowly missed your place, or indeed looking at retakes that we're going to talk about a little bit later.
Yeah, thank you. So perhaps at this stage, Alistair, you'd like to just talk a little bit about the private sixth form colleges and what they can offer in particular.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, one of our teachers, who was actually a former student at Rochester, we do grow a lot of our own teachers, described the college as like being at university while still working towards getting there. And I think at all of the sixth form colleges, there's a more adult, informal approach, certainly in a traditional grammar or independent schools. It's a small group teaching model that we use, a tutorial model that's based on university approaches, and at most of the colleges everyone's on first name terms and there's no uniform, but that atmospheric informality is balanced through students being expected to take on more responsibility for study and for hard work. To differentiate between traditional schools and private sixth form colleges, I sometimes use a healthcare analogy of the difference between going to your GP and going to a specialist, or as one parent described as an educational accident and emergency service. And it's certainly true that independent sixth forms are specialists in putting together bespoke strategies for students when things go wrong, or perhaps helping in tricky and unusual situations, timetabling flexibly, treating students as individuals. Most students who come to us at Rochester at this time of year come from very well-known, very good schools. They just need a bit more focus and support getting to their first choice university, or perhaps retaking their GCSEs to move on to their sixth form choices. Many of the private sixth forms actually started just doing retakes as retake specialists. They were sometimes known as tutorial colleges, but many have evolved into really quite distinctive independent schools, offering small classes, exam-oriented teaching, and a clear focus on university entry. As it says on the slide, most of the private colleges were in London or in Oxford and Cambridge, but there are now colleges much further afield, for example, in Bath, Birmingham, and of course, Rochester here in Kent. Many of the colleges are members of CEEF. CEEF is the professional association for the sector. I know Mary and her colleagues, education advisors, know all of the colleges very well and are able to advise on which might suit particular students for particular situations. Some colleges offer boarding, for example. Others have specialist medical preparation programs. The teachers, though, at all of the colleges, they're academic subject specialists who are often examiners for the syllabuses they teach. Pastoral care is also really important at private sixth form colleges, particularly as we're often dealing with students who've had setbacks in their education and need their confidence rebuilding. And most of the colleges also offer a good personal tutor system where tutors give individualised support and guidance, study skills coaching, as well as really focused UCAS advice.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Alistair. Okay, so let's have a look now at the potential scenarios that you're going to be facing this week. So obviously, doing better than you expected is fantastic, and it happens frequently. You know, schools, teachers, everybody's delighted when this does happen. It might make you think, well, should I be rethinking my options? If we're looking at A-level grades, and perhaps you got higher grades than you expected, you might be thinking, well, should I reconsider my degree course? There is a process called adjustment. So Alistair, perhaps you'd like to sort of talk us through that a little bit and what the other options might be if you get better A-level results than you thought you would.
Yeah, well, that's obviously a really nice situation for people to be in, but it does happen every year. They open their envelope and their grades are higher than they expected, or crucially, higher than they need for their first choice university. Because if students exceed their offers, they have the opportunity to trade up places. Although, as we've said, there may this year be less opportunity to do this, as the courses at the very competitive universities might well be full. To give you an example, I had a student the other year who was holding a very good place for computer science at Warwick, but he was determined to go to Imperial. He tried to get into Imperial through adjustment because he had the 3 A stars that were required, but they simply didn't have any places. He was successful the following year, though, applying with his grades already in the bank. So sometimes adjustment doesn't work, because even if you've got the grades you need for a particular course, the universities have to have places. I think a word of warning, really, research your course choice really carefully. Higher entry grades doesn't necessarily mean that the course will be a better fit for you. I was talking to a student last year who was considering taking a media course at a good university that was available in adjustment, and he'd exceeded his offer. His parents, I think, were encouraging him to go to a Russell Group university, but the course he was looking at was highly theoretical. It was all essay-based assessment and not at all really what he was interested in, which was practical production work and industry experience. And he ended up taking the more practical course at an ostensibly less prestigious university, but I think it would end up being a much better fit for that student. So I think in the rush and panic of results week with adjustment and clearing, the advice really is to think very carefully before rushing into making a decision, and don't necessarily try and leapfrog your way up the league tables. Look very carefully at the course that you want to do.
Yeah, that's such important advice, isn't it? You know, at any stage of your education, you know, really research the options and make sure it's the right fit. Definitely. And in terms of GCSEs, I mean, often students will do better in some subjects than they expected to, and it might make them, well, actually, you know, I could have done physics and chemistry for A-level, but I signed up for geography or biology or something, which was kind of my second choice. It shouldn't be too late to go to your sixth form school or college and chat with the directors of studies and the teachers and see what they think. But again, I'd say, I don't know if you'd agree, but you know, is this really the right thing? If your real passion is for geography and you've got a B for geography and an A for physics, or sorry, a 6 and a 9 now probably, is it the right decision to go for the subject that you scored highest in? And what other things should you take into account?
I think that's really important. I mean, sometimes I meet students and they completely rip up their GCSE subject choices because they get their GCSE grades and they say, well, I've always really loved geography and I thought I was really good at it, but I've got an 8 in history and only a 7 in geography. So I'm clearly much better at history. So I'm going to do that for A-level. If only, even in the normal year, GCSEs were that reliable as kind of indicating what you should do for sixth form. I think take advice from your school. Don't necessarily revise all of the sort of subjects you were going to do if you were clear about them. The other slight word of warning about taking GCSE results as the only or the most important guide to what you should do at A-level. It is the case that in a lot of subjects, that subject at A-level is very different to the subject as you would have experienced it at GCSE. So for example, we see an enormous gap, particularly in the maths and sciences, I'd say, between students who do very well at GCSE in maths and science, but do find that leap into A-level quite tricky, even if they've got good GCSE scores in those subjects. So take advice from your teachers. The other thing that I would say about GCSE results is that a lot of schools, particularly highly selective grammar and independent schools, will require you to have certain grades at GCSE to be allowed to do that subject at A-level, or even to have a certain overall point score at GCSE to join the sixth form. That is one of the things that sometimes independent colleges can help with. We're able to be a little bit more flexible with our admissions. I don't insist that everybody has a particular grade in a subject at GCSE to take that subject at A-level, but at the same time, we too have to be responsible and make sure that students are ready to access a particular course at A-level if they're going to be successful. So like with all of these things, it's take advice, talk to your teachers at school, talk to the people at your new sixth form college if you're moving schools for sixth form, and take some time to choose your subjects wisely.
Yeah, thank you. So let's look now in a bit more detail about if you didn't quite achieve the grades that you'd expected or hoped for at A-level. So just briefly, you might ask yourself, should you appeal? Obviously, this year the teacher assessed grades are based on all the evidence that your teachers have about your, what you've done, how you've performed throughout the course, whatever the circumstances. And clearly this year the circumstances have been difficult. I'd like to think as an educator and a teacher that the grades are as accurate as they could possibly be. However, there will be cases where students still will, I don't think that's fair. So there is an appeal process. We'll be sending out some information later after the webinar for anyone who's interested in that. But you do need to be aware that it is possible to appeal, and there are different stages of it, and there are no charges for appeals this year. So I think the best advice really is to go to your school in the first instance, and speak to your teachers, speak to the staff at your school. But there is an opportunity to appeal if you really feel that your grades are wrong. And there might have been an administrative error somewhere along the way. That does happen. And if there has been, then that should be addressed for you. The other thing that Alistair mentioned earlier is the process of clearing. This is open throughout the summer for students who at this stage need to look for another course because they haven't achieved the grades that they'd hoped for. Again, we'll send out more information later. That's not really the focus of this webinar, the clearing process. I mean, I don't know if you want to just say a few words about clearing, Alistair, and your experience of it, because obviously you've had to assist a lot of students probably in that situation over the years.
Yeah, and it's often the first thing that we say to students, actually, kind of if they come here wanting to retake, we say, well, have you checked in clearing first that there isn't a course that matches what you want to do? It's a little bit similar, though, to the word of warning that I gave about adjustment. It's the perils of rushing headlong into a university course that isn't suited to you in clearing. Every year in Rochester, at about October time, we normally see a couple of students who've actually, in their quite understandable desperation to go to uni at the same time as their peers, who've made a choice in clearing that actually hasn't worked out. We had a student last year who'd taken an offer in clearing to do comparative literature at a university because he'd missed his English literature offer. He hated the course, ended up dropping out and joining our one-year retake program instead, and then going back to university, this time to Bristol, to do English the following year, which is what he wanted to do first time round. Another example that springs to mind is a student who was so desperate to go to Loughborough, and he'd missed his offer, that he took a foundation course run at a local FE college kind of near Loughborough, and again he just wasn't happy. He ended up transferring to our retake course, redoing his maths and physics A-level, and then getting a place on a Loughborough maths degree the following year. So there may well be some good places in clearing, but it does pay to do your homework before rushing into something.
Yeah, no, definitely. And just a couple of things about clearing, because obviously this could be a situation that you find yourself in tomorrow. You do your homework. So have a look already, look at courses that might be of interest to you and do your research, because once you're on the phone to the universities, they want to know that you've really looked into the course that you're applying for or that you're asking for information about. Have your personal statement in front of you, have your UCAS number there, know who you're going to call, have those phone numbers ready. And we've got an information sheet that we'll send out afterwards if anyone's interested. So just pop your name on the chat and we'll make sure that you get that. But it's all being confident, being prepared, and I'm really looking at what those options are. As Alistair said, there's no point in just grasping at a course in order to go this year. It's got to be the right thing for you.
Mary, I was going to say, and one more thing on clearing. There's a new feature, a relatively new feature. I think it was introduced last year, called Clearing Plus, which is aimed at anyone who's unplaced or who's applying for the first time through clearing. If you look for a button in your UCAS track called View Matches, you can see courses which UCAS considers would be good for you. The UCAS algorithm, which is a friendly algorithm, given both your original choices combined with your qualifications and grades. So the Clearing Plus will try to match you up to a course that would suit you. And if you see a course that you like, you can hit the interested button and the university can contact you directly. So UCAS is helping you through clearing this year.
Brilliant.
Clearing Plus.
Yeah, that's really useful. Thanks for that tip, Alistair. Great. Let's turn now to retake. So if you believe you can do better and you want to improve your grades, but this is obviously something that you specialised in at Rochester with great success. So can you talk us through the benefit really of doing resits and retake courses and what the different options are this year?
Yeah, I mean, look, some students who I meet at this time of year every year look upon the prospect of spending extra time, an extra year at school and retaking with about as much enthusiasm as a visit to the dentist. A lot of them are they want to be planning their move to university, or they're looking forward to the Reading Festival at the end of August rather than wanting to think about retakes. So what we do is we normally start with a consultation process, a detailed discussion of what's actually gone wrong, particularly if a student has only narrowly missed their offer. We've mentioned clearing. We encourage them to look carefully in clearing, and also not to underestimate the hard work and commitment that's involved in any retake program. We don't just wave a magic Rochester wand and grades improve. It's a big commitment. It's sometimes the case that students simply haven't worked hard enough first time round. Maybe they were doing the wrong subjects or didn't have the discipline or study skills to succeed. I find that the most successful retakers ultimately are those who honestly assessed why things haven't worked out first time round, have taken a bit of responsibility for making sure the outcome at the end of their academic gap year is a more positive one. Most of the students who come to us, certainly for A-level retakes, have got pretty decent grades to start with. They've got university options. It's quite normal for someone with ABB who has lots of university options in clearing to decide to retake instead. I had a student the other year who'd missed his Imperial Engineering offer by just one grade. He was offered a place at all of the other London colleges, but he was determined to come and retake. He wasn't in a rush to go to university. I think he thought the rowing was better at Imperial, so he was determined to go there. But he was also keen to do a lot more maths prior to go to university. And he worked his way through all the different further maths modules and step papers to prepare for his degree. It's sometimes as much about preparing for the academic content of your chosen degree as actually getting the grades. What we try and do at Rochester and at other independent colleges as well is to put together courses that create a positive program, encouraging students to think in terms not of an A-level retake year necessarily, but as a university preparation one, an opportunity to reinvent themselves a bit while retaking their A-levels at the same time. It's not unusual for students to add one or two subjects from scratch in a year alongside retakes, particularly to help present themselves to universities as not just retaking, but to make the year more interesting and to broaden their academic portfolio. I find that taking new subjects alongside retakes often looks good, and it can kind of be more successful in terms of university entry. One of our successful retakers last year did A-level classics for fun, even though he was applying for natural sciences. Another who was applying to study psychology while retaking maths and physics took the A-level in psychology. She hadn't done it before as an extra one-year subject, and now has got a place at Edinburgh. Sometimes our retakers are able to combine studying with part-time work experience placements or internships if they're applying for degrees like dentistry, vet science or business studies. The whole point is to make the retake experience as positive as possible. And most of our retakers, while reluctant when we first meet them at results time, tell us by the end of the year that it's been the most productive and enjoyable one of their secondary education. Our average grade improvement at A-level is around 2 grades. So if you come with 3 Cs, 3 As can be a realistic prospect, and 3 Bs could translate into 3 A stars. And we do see those sorts of upgrades. One of the questions that I'm most often asked by students considering retakes is, well, will I get a place at a university that I want to go to if I'm retaking? Sometimes students worry that putting down lower grades that they've achieved first time around will stop them from getting offers. That's not our experience. This year, our retakers have got offers from universities like King's, Durham, Edinburgh and UCL. Bristol and Exeter are the most popular universities amongst our retakers, or have been in recent years, and their policy is quite clear. Exeter say all applicants retaking a qualification will be considered for all programs. So you have to be, again, tactical, do your homework, make sure the university that you want to go to, or sometimes even the department within that university, are happy with you applying as a retake student. At some universities, it can actually differ, Mary, from course to course. So at UCL, resits are generally considered okay for most programs, but definitely not for law, where they want the grades to be achieved in one sitting. So again, it's to do with doing your homework before committing to a particular retake course. But it's not unusual for students applying with low A-level grades, but good retake predictions, to have 4 or 5 Russell Group University offers, if that's where they're applying to, by Christmas.
Brilliant. And is there any difference this year because of the pandemic? Do you think universities are adopting a different approach to retakes?
Well, it's going to be very interesting. And last year, there was actually some of the medical schools decided that they were not going to count retakes as retakes, because the retakes were in effect the first time the students have had the opportunity to sit the exams, and that's had the effect of opening up more universities and places than would ordinarily accept resit students. So I think we have to wait and see what happens next year. The universities haven't declared what their attitude is going to be and whether that's going to change. I think that will become clearer once term starts.
Yeah. Okay, thanks for that. That's really helpful. Looking now at GCSE results and students who perhaps haven't got the grades that they need to progress to the courses that they wanted to do in the sixth form. I know we've touched on this a little bit earlier. Again, you know, there is an appeal process. The first step is always going to be to go to your school, talk to your teachers, make sure that there hasn't been an administrative error. You know, if necessary, the exam boards will get involved and they will reconsider the evidence that your teachers have submitted. And this is also the case for A-level, of course. But, you know, you really need to think carefully about, do you want to go through all that stress of appeal, or is this time to sit down with your school and your teachers and really have a think about your best options? You know, what should you be doing for sixth form? It is really important to get your English and Maths GCSEs. You know, you do need those minimum grades because they're going to be a passport for you for your future studies. So if you haven't quite achieved the grades that you need in that's really something you need to talk to your teachers about. You'll have the opportunity to take the exams in the autumn, or you might need a bit more time. Often, you know, the sixth form colleges will allow you to start on your A-level courses at the same time as doing some preparation for your English and Maths GCSEs. So really, you know, have a look, talk. The key is not to panic, but to go to your schools. Your teachers want to help you, and they will try to work out the best possible programme for you. There are GCSE retake courses. It's possible to do them in 1 year, to go back and really focus on your GCSEs if you really haven't done as well as you feel you could or you need to. Again, you know, the independent sixth form colleges are fantastic in this respect. They're really good at putting together a programme that will suit your circumstances and help you to sort of reach the next stage in your education. Would you like to just have give us a few words about that as well, Alistair, about what to do if your GCSEs aren't quite what you wanted them to be?
Yeah, no, we certainly have students, Mary, in the situation that you describe every year. And there are two ways of approaching it. And sometimes when students come to see us and they've got disappointing GCSE results, we do recommend that they take a deep breath and opt to do a full 1 year GCSE course. That way they can build up the foundation in all of their subjects before moving forward to sixth form. I think that's particularly important if they ultimately want to do A-levels and university courses that depend upon a solid foundation at GCSE. So for example, if they want to do maths and science A-levels, those subjects are very difficult to access without strong GCSE grades in the maths and sciences. Where we try and avoid a full GCSE retake year, though, is if the subjects that a student wants to do in sixth form at A-level can be accessed without retaking all of their GCSEs. So, for example, if they want to do A-levels in social sciences, in humanities, in the creative arts, these subjects don't depend on whether you've passed GCSEs in maths and science. So we don't think that students should be held back from starting those A-levels. So we're able to put together programs whereby they can start A-levels in the subjects they want to do and then pick up the retakes, probably in maths, in the autumn, as you suggest, which is often the first time they can attempt to retake. Sometimes with students, it takes more than one attempt and to get, particularly their maths. It's often a tricky retake, that one with some students. But the idea is that they retake that subject during the course of their sixth form, so that when they're applying to university in the second year of sixth form, they've got that full set of GCSEs that they will need for progression.
Great, thank you. So just generally to recap, so how do you decide what to do? You've opened that envelope, you've got your results online. So again, can't stress this enough, please don't panic. It's not the end of the world. Take your time, weigh up the options, and speak to an advisor. You know, this could be your teacher, your head of sixth form, it could be director of studies in the school that you're at or considering joining. But there are people out there to help you, and they've seen it all before, and they've got a variety of solutions that, will be the right solution for you. It's important to ask here, what went wrong? As Alistair sort of alluded to before, perhaps you didn't work hard enough, or perhaps the circumstances were against you, for some other reason. It is worth spending some time thinking, okay, what could I do differently? So really have a serious and honest discussion with yourself and with your teachers, so that you're really well prepared for the next stage and you can avoid making those same mistakes. And then what do you need to get it right? So things to consider, your subject choices, which we've talked about. An environment, perhaps you need a change of environment. And if you're able to consider an independent sixth form college, this can be a really positive move for you. They are like a bridge between school and university, and they can be a fantastic next step for you in your education. Specialist support, so obviously academic support, pastoral support, all these things are important. So wherever you choose to go for the next stage, it's worth asking questions. If you feel you need some support in a particular area, make sure that that's going to be available at the place you choose to study. And maybe you just need a bit more time. Maybe you need that additional year to really address, your academic interests, your study skills, all those things. And it was great to hear Alistair saying that, students are saying, the retake year has actually been a really, really positive experience for a lot of students. Giving you that extra time before you move on to university, if that's what you want to do indeed. I'm just going to talk a little bit now about the students who are aiming for really highly competitive courses and things like law, medicine, dentistry, etc. And whether it's worth considering retaking for those. So Alistair, perhaps you'd like to sort of talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, and this is where it gets quite technical, and the situation with these sorts of courses, as you know, Mary, is competitive enough when you're applying for them first time round, and certainly with something like medicine, lots of candidates who are getting their A-levels in the usual way over 2 years don't get places. So when you apply as a retake student, it's even harder, but it is possible. I mean, the short answer is yes, you can. Here at Rochester, we had 6 A-level retake students last year placed at UK medical schools. You've just got to be very careful about where you apply. Some of our medical research students do extra years on 1-year intensive courses like sociology or philosophy to broaden their academic profile. But the key thing is, where do I apply? I mean, some medical schools, and we have to be honest about this, simply will not accept applications from students who resit their A-levels unless there are serious mitigating circumstances or you've got a recognised disability under the Equality Act. Having said that, though, at the moment, I think, and it does change every year, you have to check every year, Bristol, Sheffield, Southampton, Exeter, all currently consider retakes. Others will do beyond that, but only if you achieve certain grades first time round. So, for example, if you're interested in Manchester or Hull and York medical schools, they welcome applications from retakers, but you have to have got BBB in your A-levels first time round. I think at Leicester, it's ABB. Some universities beyond that will consider your application, but they raise the bar for retakers. So Newcastle and Liverpool will ask for A stars rather than A's in subjects resat. Whereas at Keele, I think it's still the case, you have to secure your grades first and then reapply. So you can't apply on the basis of predicted grades in your retake year. You have to apply the following year. So essentially then there'll be a 2-year gap. In all of these cases, you have to watch the GCSE requirements as well as you would do first time round. And if anything, UCAT and BMAT performance is even more crucial when you're applying as a retaker. So I always say to our students, it's to do with being strategic about where you apply. With medicine, and it's the same for dentistry and vet science, there are no bad UK medical schools, and choosing where to apply as a retaker is far more of a determining factor on likely success than redrafting your personal statement for 27 times.
Great. And I know you've got a couple of case studies that you'd like to share with us, Alistair, just to give people an idea of what actually is possible and has happened with some of your students. So you'd just like to talk us through this couple of students' cases.
So I think the first one there, Daisy, kind of proves that the answer is yes. It can sometimes be worth retaking, even for these really competitive courses. Daisy came from Tunbridge Grammar School, one of our local grammar schools, and very, very typical. They had a very good academic record up to the point in time that she got her A-level results. She got, if I remember, a C in biology, a D in chemistry, and a B in maths first time round. She didn't change her subject. She wanted to retake, and it made sense because she was applying for medicine, the same subject she was taken. And you can see from the grades that she achieved second time round, they were improved significantly. But most importantly, she actually got a place on her chosen course, which was medicine at Sheffield. So it can work. But not everybody who we meet who comes and initially says, I want to retake because I want to be a doctor, ends up doing that. Our next slide, if you want to move on. is Maya. Now, when I first met Maya, she was very clear that she wanted to kind of follow the same route as Daisy, actually, and reapply for medicine. But in the first couple of weeks of her retake course, she decided that she didn't want to be a doctor, and she was going to do something totally different. So because of her change of direction, Maya was able to not retake A-level chemistry, which I think she was quite happy about. She also ditched the Spanish, and sorry, she did retake the chemistry, and she ditched the biology, but she took up 2 entirely new subjects from scratch. She was in my 1-year A-level English literature group and got an A star in that in 1 year, and she also took fine art A-level in a year from scratch, which is what she ended up applying to do. She applied to UCL's Slade School of Fine Art and got a place on the fine art degree course there. So from medicine to fine art is quite a big shift, and sometimes students' changes are a little bit less radical than that. But I think it's a good example because it shows that the retake year can be that opportunity to kind of reinvent yourself a bit and perhaps change direction.
Right, that's very inspiring.
I think the final slide, actually, Mary, that I've put together has got sort of 3 students on it. I mean, I think listening to my students, they always tell me this time of year, it almost seems like those of them who've missed their university offers, that they're in a club of one. You know, the media seems to be full of cartwheeling students with perfect clean sweeps of A stars. It's not like this for everyone. Mary and her team speak to a lot of people at Education Advisors every year who need help. I'm happy to speak directly to parents and students later this week as well. But I thought I'd share an invitation to talk directly with some students who this time last year didn't get the A-level results they wanted or needed. And they're happy to talk to parents and students about their experiences. There's a platform on the Rochester Independent College website where students and parents can contact a range of our student ambassadors and talk to them. If you contact them tomorrow, they'll actually know their A-level results. And one of the students who's featured there, you can see Ralph. He was at Oundle School before coming to us at Rochester. He was actually advised by one of Mary's colleagues at Education Advisors this time last year. And he's reapplied to study medicine and has got a conditional place at Aberdeen. So if you want to talk directly to some students, go to the Rochester website, go and look at our ambassador platform, and I know that these guys will be really happy to share their experiences of how they felt this time last year and what a difference a year can make if you actually kind of take this route.
Brilliant, thank you very much. Okay, so just to sort of sum up what we covered today, so what to do on results day. Obviously, you open it up, think about the scenarios that we've discussed and which best matches your situation, and consider what it is that you want to do next and that you need to do to achieve the next stage. Make a plan and a backup plan. And get advice. Can't really stress that enough. We're here to give independent and free advice at this time of year for students who are looking at alternative options for the next stage. Take every opportunity to investigate those options. Speak to colleges. As you know, you've got the invitation from Alistair, who's always happy to speak to prospective students and their parents. And this is the case at all the private sixth form colleges. You've got staff there who are very experienced and who will talk to you and enable you to make the right decision. And finally here, remember your situation is not unique. There are students in a similar situation to you, and there is always a solution out there. So please don't give up. So we are here to help. You can phone us, you can email us. We'll put the recording of this on our YouTube channel and send you a link so that you can rewatch if there's anything you're unsure about. And we will be sending out an information sheet as well, as I said, about what to do on results day in terms of clearing, appeals, etc. So finally, I think we've got a couple of questions here which I'll address. Any others, please do add to the the Q&A session. I'm very happy to answer any other questions that people have. We've got one here about how important GCSE results are in terms of getting university offers. Alistair, perhaps, would you like to say something about that?
Yeah, thanks, Mary. I think as Heather's beginning to say, it very much depends, the importance of GCSE results, what you want to do at university and where you want to do it as well. Some university courses, we've spoken about medicine, certainly law as well. Certain university courses require certain grades in certain subjects at GCSE. So you need to kind of check that really carefully. In general, though, those courses are few and far between, and they are the predictable and competitive ones. For most universities, for most courses, it is your A-level grades that are the determining factor as to kind of whether you're going to get a place at that university. So I've certainly seen lots of students over the years with relatively modest GCSE results still go on to win places at really good universities because they kind of, they develop a bit later in their A-levels when they've chosen to do subjects that they really enjoy, that they're actually very good at, are higher than their GCSEs. So it does depend what you're applying for and where.
Brilliant, thanks very much. I've got a question here about deferring your university course and taking a gap year and how to approach that, what the process is. Yeah, is that something you can offer any advice on?
Yeah, I mean, it's really a question for the university where you're holding a place. If you've not originally applied through UCAS for a deferred place, but you've applied to go this year, what you will need to do is, certainly when you get your results tomorrow, is to contact the university directly and essentially ask them if they're happy for you to have a gap year and to hold the place for you in that gap year. If you've met your offer, most universities will be happy to do that. There was an article in the papers last week about Exeter University actually encouraging students to defer for a year if they were holding medical school offers, and they were actually offering incentives. So you could have a very, very good gap year on the incentive the university was offering. But I think if you've not got a deferred place, talk to the university. They will probably be very happy to defer it. The only reluctance we occasionally hear from university admissions tutors is if you're applying to do a subject like maths or a subject with a high mathematical content at university. Sometimes the very good universities don't like gap years for maths students because they're worried that if you'll forget all of your maths if you don't kind of practice it and while you're on your gap year. But speak directly to the universities.
Okay, thanks very much. I think that's probably all. There's another question coming here. Okay, this is quite a specific question here, I think. So when should you get work experience for medicine? And for GCSE, if you get 3 9s in chemistry, maths and biology, but lower scores in history and geography and Spanish, will that affect your medical application?
I'll take those in reverse order, if I may then. The question about GCSE results is really the same answer that I've given to several of the questions. It depends where you are going to apply to medical school. Different medical schools have got different GCSE requirements. The GCSEs are weighted in different ways at different medical schools. So it's all to do with looking at your profile as a whole. And if you've got 9s in the triple sciences, that's obviously going to look great wherever you're applying, but other universities it's not going to matter as much if some of your GCSEs are lower. It's all to do with auditing every aspect of your profile, including GCSE results, and then matching it up to the right med school. In terms of work experience, It's obviously been a really difficult couple of years because of the pandemic for prospective medical students to do some of the work experience placements that they would often do in preparation for their applications. In terms of when you should do it, for medicine, we always recommend that people start thinking about broadening their profile and getting some medically related work experience as early as possible. And certainly I meet keen students in our lower school who are thinking about their medical school application when they're 11 or 12. What we do say to students, though, is that the medical schools, particularly this year, don't expect you to have had necessarily high-end medically specific work experience. A lot of the medical schools are just as interested and impressed with volunteer work that you've done in non-medical contexts. The important thing is not necessarily that you've spent a week shadowing a consultant who happens to be a brain surgeon, but if you've volunteered in a charity shop or done some work with children over a long period of time and learned something from that experience, that can be more valuable. The only exception to that would be if you're applying for veterinary medicine, because some of the vet schools have got very specific requirements in terms of the type and the amount, sometimes even the hours of work experience that you have to have in order to apply to the vet schools. So you need to check the requirements of the individual vet schools that you want to submit an application to.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, but that just really emphasizes this need to research your options very thoroughly, find out as much as you possibly can about your respective degree courses and the university's, individual requirements. There's never a kind of one size fits all. So, okay, well, I think that's pretty much wrapping things up for today. So thank you so much again to Alistair Brownlow for joining us from Rochester. You've given us some really valuable insights today, which I hope will be useful for everybody. I'd just like to finish by wishing you all the very, very best of luck, and to reassure you that there is help out there, including us, of course, if you find that you need it this week. So thank you very much indeed.
Absolutely. Thank you so much again, Mary, and to the whole team at Education Advisors for the invitation. And as Mary said, good luck, everybody. Hope everything goes smoothly tomorrow. Results day this year, of course, should be a little bit calmer than last year's educational white knuckle ride. There's no mutant algorithms looming over this year's results, and the results that students get on Tuesday and Thursday this week should be the same ones they have in a week's time.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, everybody.
Cheerio. Bye-bye.
Bye.